Discover why Miriam was punished, the shocking divine plan behind her challenge to Moses. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, the sun bore down upon the hot sands of the Sinai desert, where the Israelite camp thrived with the sounds of people learning to cope with their newfound freedom. After generations bound by the shackles of Egypt, the Israelites wandered, uncertain yet hopeful, clinging to the promise of the land ahead. Amid their ranks stood Miriam, not merely as the sister of Moses but also as a revered prophetess. She had led the women in song and dance, praising Yahweh after the miraculous crossing of the Red Sea, yet even within this sacred community, a seed of discord sprouted. Miriam pondered in her heart, has the Lord indeed spoken only through Moses? Has he not spoken through us as well? Together with Aaron, they whispered amongst themselves, their voices pregnant with jealousy, challenging the divine authority appointed over them. Such words pierced the communal bond, escalating unrest where once there was unity. The air thickened as tension settled in, each heartbeat echoing the simmering discontent. Dare they question my wisdom? The Lord, ever attentive to the murmurs of his faithful, considered. In an instant, a divine judgment unfurled, and the ground trembled beneath Miriam's feet. What followed was swift and severe. Upon her skin bloomed the stark white of leprosy, a harrowing sign of divine displeasure. As the people gasped, silence replaced their whispers, disbelief flooding their hearts. How could a prophetess, a woman held in such high regard, face such a fate? Led away from the camp, Miriam was enveloped in sorrow and isolation, reflecting on the joy she once brought to her people through worship. Days turned into weeks, her spirit weighed down by the ramifications of her actions. Through the heavy veils of her grief emerged thoughts of unity, of the power found in lifting one another in faith. Meanwhile, Moses, filled with compassion, fell to his knees. "O God, heal her, I pray. If only we could restore her," he pleaded, his humble cry puncturing the silence of the heavens. This plea transcended the boundaries of familial duty, resonating with the deeper need for community and reconciliation. The heartfelt intercession of a brother encapsulated the weight of love against the backdrop of divine justice, but God, in his infinite wisdom, mandated a period of separation. Let her be shut outside the camp for 7 days, and after that she may be brought in again. As the people hesitated, caught in the balance of mourning for Miriam and the biblical lesson on authority, they were faced with profound questions, one that would shape their journey. How could they reconcile the leader chosen by God with their own voices? What did it mean to honor his appointed leader amidst their fears and uncertainties? Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. As the Israelites awaited the end of Miriam's exile, they wrestled with their identity as a chosen people, caught between divine judgment and the hope of restoration. Expectation hung thick in the air. They sensed a divine purpose unfolding, a lesson yet swathed in God's covenant love, which beckoned them to deeper understanding. Amidst the wilderness, a profound revelation lingered, waiting to be unveiled in the tapestry of faith and obedience, and the promised land loomed ever closer on the horizon. And it came to pass, on the 7th day, that the sun rose over the camp, casting golden rays upon the weary people of Israel. The air was vibrant with a mix of hope and trepidation, as all eyes turned toward the tent where Miriam had been separated. Whispers filled the camp, each heart yearning for news, wondering if the Lord had heard Moses' plead. As the day advanced, the cloud that rested above the tabernacle drew closer, a sign of the Almighty's presence. The people watched in breathless anticipation, remembering the songs of joy that once sprang from Miriam's lips. Moses, with a heart full of compassion and obedience, stepped toward the entrance of Miriam's dwelling, wherein she awaited her fate. "Lift up your eyes, for the Lord has heard our cries, and his mercy is like a river," he declared with a voice loud enough to be heard throughout the assembly encamped around them. The people paused, the weight of their sorrows hung heavily upon their shoulders, but hope kindled in their hearts as they keenly listened. Lord Yahweh's voice broke the silence with clarity. Miriam, the weight of your words and the seed of discord you sowed shall surely be purged. Yet also shall you be healed. At these words, the leprosy that had marred her skin began to fade like mist before the dawn, leaving her renewed, as if born again. Miriam emerged, her face radiant, her spirit set free from the shackles of judgment. The women whom she had once led in worship rushed forward, enfolding her in joyous embrace. They sang praises that echoed over the sunlit sands, voices rising like the sweet fragrance of offerings laid upon the altar. Moses, our leader, our brother, you are chosen, and the Lord has made you the rock upon which this congregation stands. Miriam spoke, her heart swelling with gratitude. Let not my folly bring division but instead, unity strengthened beneath God's mighty hand. And so, the people rejoiced all the more, for they saw not just a sister returned, but the embodiment of God's grace and mercy among them. In that moment, the tension that had fractured their hearts began to weave them back together. The lessons of humility resounded, reverberating through their souls, for they recognized the significance of God's authority and the collective call to walk in unity. Yet, even as they celebrated, the Lord's Spirit whispered among them, Know this, O Israel, a greater lesson awaits. He who questions my plans shall find himself in turmoil, yet he who embraces my authority shall discover the fullness of the promise I have given. With this divine declaration, an unsettling awareness gripped the hearts of the people. Who among them might stumble again upon the sacred ground of authority? The echoes of Miriam's transgression mingled with the melodies of redemption, a reminder that unity must be treasured and maintained as they journeyed closer to the land promised to their forefathers. As the celebrations waned and the fires glowed softly that night, a hush fell over the camp. Each learned the weight of their freedom and the responsibilities that came with it. They understood that Moses, appointed by divine decree, held a mantle heavy with purpose, leading them to a destiny full of hope and promise, and thus, as they laid under a canopy of stars, a question haunted the hearts of all. What other unseen trials would lie ahead in their pursuit of the land flowing with milk and honey? Hidden within the tapestry of this journey, the sovereign Lord was weaving a plan even more profound than they could discern, beckoning them toward an unforeseen destiny that would forever declare His glory on the earth. And it came to pass, as the camp of Israel settled into the night, a sense of solemn expectancy cloaked the people. The stars flickered like promises across the vast expanse, while the soft whispers of the wind carried secrets of the Almighty. The children of Israel felt a stirring deep within, an awareness that the God of their forefathers was nearby, and that His purposes were unfolding with divine precision. Then the Lord spoke again, His voice reverberating through the stillness, Gather, O children of Jacob, for this is a moment of revelation. So the leaders of the tribes and the elders, duly summoned, approached Moses, trembling yet hopeful, their hearts heavy with the lessons learned from Miriam's restoration. They formed a circle beneath the illuminated sky, their eyes fixed upon the glowing cloud of the Lord's presence. I heard your cries, and I sought your unity, the Lord declared, His words echoing amidst the silence. Yet I have witnessed the stirring of ambition in the hearts of many, a whispering that I do not desire among my chosen. Even now, the seeds of discord remain, and you stand on the threshold of a new journey. Moses, filled with reverent fear, relayed God's message to the assembly. Know, my brethren, that the same pride which overtakes one may spread like wildfire among many. Miriam was chastened not as a mere punishment, but as a lesson to us all. Humility is the path to favor in the sight of the Lord. The people remained still, each heart reflecting upon its own tendencies toward envy or strife. With burning conviction, the Lord continued, Heed my warnings, for I walk among you, and my glory shall not share space with arrogance. The land I am giving you is holy, and the hearts of my people must also be set apart. My covenant is a treasure, and only those with pure hearts shall inherit. As the words hung in the air, a shudder rippled through the crowd. They began to comprehend that the Lord's hand was not only present in blessings but also pivoted heavily upon accountability. It was a truth they would need to grapple with as they moved forward in their journey of faith. The path ahead would not be easy, but God's sovereignty promised that it would be fruitful for those who remain steadfast and humble. I will establish your covenant with each generation, and I will bind my promises to your hearts, the Lord declared. But remember this, the trials and tests that await you in the wilderness are designed to refine you as gold. Do not fear them, embrace them, for they are pathways to the fulfillment of my purpose. And in that moment, amidst the solemn faces, a realization dawned: unity was not merely a desire but a command, supplied by the grace of God Himself. They mounted their defenses against the rising spirits of dissent, knowing that they were called to rise above it, to walk as one. So it was that, as the dawn broke over the horizon, the people gathered their belongings and prepared for the next leg of their journey. The camp, once fraught with tension, now became a place of renewed focus and united purpose, yet, deep within the fabric of their doubts and fears, the question raged on: what trials awaited them beyond the wilderness? How would they face those who would rise against them, even from among their own? And beneath the weight of anticipation, a profound truth sustained them: hidden within this wilderness was a divine promise awaiting its time to bloom, a greater plan even now emerging, one that would reveal the depths of the Lord's mercy and test the fabric of their faith in ways they had yet to fathom. And it came to pass, as the sun rose over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, the children of Israel moved forth in obedience to the call of their God. They struck their tents and walked in organized procession, each tribe led by its elders, the sound of their footsteps a rhythmic testimony of their renewed purpose. As they journeyed, the Lord spoke once more through Moses, saying, "You shall remember all the ways in which I have guided you these 40 years in the wilderness, that I may humble you and test you, to know what is in your heart, whether you would keep my commandments or not." The people listened intently, the gravity of his words settling upon their hearts like dew upon the morning grass. They understood that remembrance was vital, for in remembering, they would not forget the bitter waters of Marah, nor the grace which sweetened them. They would not forget the manna which rained from heaven, nor the quails that filled their camp. They recognized these blessings as the hand of their God, who, ever faithful, sustained them through trials, yet shadows of uncertainty lingered, as whispers of doubt crept into their conversations. Some questioned, are we truly ready to face the trials ahead? Will the Lord fight for us when such challenges arise? In this moment of vulnerability, their leader, filled with the Spirit of God, rallied them, speaking with authority, "Fear not. For the Lord your God goes before you, He will fight for you, and you shall see His deliverance." At the edge of their path lay a vast desert, unknown and treacherous. As they approached, their hearts trembled at the sight of it. The arid land stretched endlessly, devoid of life, as though the very air carried a weight of despair. But Moses, guided by divine insight, assured them, "Here, you shall see the might of your Father. For this wilderness is not only a test but also a place of revelation." Then the Lord spoke to Moses again, instructing him, "Prepare the people, and let them consecrate themselves. For tomorrow, I will demonstrate my power among you, that you may know I am the Lord." With urgency, Moses called for the people to wash their garments and to draw near, readying their hearts for the divine encounter. Awe swept over them, mingling with reverence, as the day turned toward evening, a brightness gathering upon the horizon that signaled the arrival of the Lord's presence. Suddenly, there was a loud sound, like a thunderstorm, and the ground shook beneath them. A great cloud descended, veiling the mountain with a palpable intensity. Fear gripped the hearts of the people, and they stood trembling, for they realized they were in the presence of holiness. Amidst this, the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "There shall be a day when I shall put my Spirit upon my chosen. In the midst of your trials shall I raise a prophet from among your brethren, and his voice shall call you to righteousness, even as I have called you today." In this prophetic declaration, the foundations of their fears were met with a profound promise. Moses recognized the weight of these words. A plan was unfolding that would transcend their immediate journey, echoing through generations yet unseen, and thus it was revealed that the trials awaiting them were less about judgment and more about preparation for a glorious future, one that would include not only the promise of a land flowing with milk and honey but the very presence of God Himself among them, leading them forth in strength. While they could not fathom the depths of this new covenant, they understood that a sacred fidelity rested upon them, binding them together as a nation called to light. With renewed hearts, they prepared for the night, filled with a sense of hope. What they could not see, yet believed, what they could not grasp, yet yearned for, beyond the horizon, a promise lay in waiting, as the Lord whispered through creation, beckoning them toward the culmination of his eternal plan, a mystery yet to unfold. And it came to pass, on the morning of the third day, that thunder roared again, and the mountain trembled with a might that struck fear into the hearts of all gathered below. The children of Israel positioned themselves at the base of the mountain, their eyes fixed in trepidation upon the cloud enveloping its peak. The Lord had instructed them to refrain from approaching, declaring, "Do not come near, lest you perish, for I am the Lord your God, a consuming fire." Moses ascended the mountain at the command of the Lord, and as he entered the darkness of the cloud, the glory of God enveloped him. The reality of this sacred encounter weighed upon him deeply, for he was chosen to receive the law that would govern the people of Israel. In this moment, he understood that these commandments were not mere words but the very heart of God, a blueprint for holy living. As the days passed atop the mountain, the Lord unveiled his statutes, detailing how the children of Israel were to walk in covenant with him, declaring, "You shall have no other gods before me." He spoke of love and justice, the very essence of his character, and established the foundations of their community. Through Moses, God communicated both the blessings for obedience and the curses for disobedience, thus reminding them of the weight of their commitment. Meanwhile, the people grew restless beneath the mountain's shadow. The fear that had once held them in silence began to shift into murmurs of discontent. "Where is this Moses? What has become of him?" they questioned among themselves. In their impatience, some among them approached Aaron, the brother of Moses, beseeching him, "Make us gods that shall go before us, for as for this Moses, we know not what has become of him." Under the pressure of their demands, Aaron yielded, collecting their gold and fashioning a golden calf. Their hearts turned from the living God, who had delivered them from slavery, and they danced around the idol with reckless abandon. The sound of their revelry reached the ears of the Lord, who said to Moses, "Go, get down, for your people, whom you brought out of the land of Egypt, have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly from the way which I commanded them." A flood of wrath surged through Moses as he understood the betrayal of the people. Once again forgetting the mighty hand of their deliverance, with fervent prayers, Moses interceded, begging the Lord to reconsider his anger, reminding him of his promises to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. "Turn from your fierce wrath and relent from this harm to your people," he pleaded, determined to spare them from destruction. Finally understanding the weight of their sin, Moses descended from the mountain, the tablets of stone clutched in his hands, inscribed with the very words of God. As he approached the camp, his eyes fell upon the chaos, and his heart shattered within him. In that moment of righteous indignation, he threw the tablets and shattered them at the foot of the mountain, a testament to the covenant broken by a faithless people. Moses called for those who were on the Lord's side, knowing that those who truly sought the Lord would need to separate themselves from this folly. The tribe of Levi responded, rallying to him, and he commanded them to draw their swords, purging the camp of the idolatry that threatened to consume their very souls. Yet in the aftermath, the shadows of their sins loomed heavily upon the people. The Lord instructed Moses to engrave 2 new tablets, a sign of renewal, though the consequences of their actions would ripple through generations. "I will visit their iniquity upon them," the Lord declared, yet his compassion remained. As the dust settled, Moses pleaded with the Lord, asking, "Who will go with us?" And the Lord replied, "My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest." A flicker of hope began anew, even amidst judgment, for the divine promise remained. Yet the hearts of the people were heavy with the weight of their transgressions, and they would learn the depth of God's holiness and the cost of their own unfaithfulness. Thus, the stage was set for the unfolding of a greater revelation where the sacrifice required would not only atone for Israel's sin but foreshadow the ultimate atonement to come. Little did they know that in their folly, the Lord had already devised a plan that would lead them beyond their moment of despair, beckoning them toward redemption through a greater deliverer yet unseen. And the days passed as Moses remained on the mountain, clothed in the glory of God's presence, receiving further instructions for the guidance of the people. The Lord spoke anew to Moses, declaring, "You shall make no graven images, and I will be your God. Tell the children of Israel they are to worship me in spirit and truth, for I am a jealous God." Meanwhile, back at the camp, confusion and uncertainty multiplied among the people. Their hearts had been stirred to restlessness, leading some to question the leadership of Moses more openly. They began to see Miriam, the sister of Moses and Aaron, as a voice of dissent, inspired by their growing discontent. Has the Lord only spoken through Moses? She challenged to those around her. Has he not spoken through us as well? In her heart, Miriam wrestled with the weight of leadership and sought to establish her own voice. She gathered with Aaron, voicing her concerns, and the two conspired against Moses, saying, "Indeed, he is not the only prophet among us. We too hear from the Lord." The Lord heard their words and was displeased. He called unto Moses and said, "I will meet with them. Call Miriam and Aaron to the tent of meeting." As they attended the appointed place, Moses stood before the Lord, the weight of his brother's and sister's words heavy upon him, but he remained steadfast. The glory of the Lord descended, enveloping the tent, a fearful sight that testified to the power and majesty of God. Then he spoke to Miriam and Aaron, saying, "Hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I the Lord will make myself known to him in visions and will speak to him in dreams. Not so with my servant Moses, he is faithful in all my house. With him I speak face to face, even plainly, and not in dark sayings, and the similitude of the Lord shall he behold. Why then were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses?" At these words, Miriam and Aaron trembled, understanding the gravity of their rebellion. As Moses humbly interceded for them, saying, "O Lord, heal her, I pray," the Lord responded, "If her father had spit in her face, should she not be ashamed 7 days? Let her be shut out of the camp for 7 days, and afterward she may be received again." And thus, Miriam was struck with leprosy, a divine mark of separation in consequence for her prideful heart. For 7 days she was cast out, yet during this time, the people did not depart but waited, encamped in the desert. They learned that the presence of the Lord was not to be taken lightly and that his choice of leader was not to be questioned. In her suffering, Miriam pondered the depth of her challenge to Moses and the grace of their shared history as siblings. As she was restored after the appointed time, a new understanding settled in her heart, a revelation of humility before a sovereign God. The camp moved onward toward the land promised, and the undertones of Miriam's challenge echoed within the hearts of the people, forming a resonating lesson of God's mercy and judgment. Yet there remained a divine mystery. Why had the Lord chosen Moses over Miriam, and how would this unfolding grace lead to the fulfillment of his covenant promises? The greater purpose of God's sovereign plan was still to be revealed, for it pointed toward an eternal deliverer, whose voice would echo through ages, bringing purification and hope to all of Israel. And it came to pass that, as the days of journeying continued beneath the unyielding sun, the children of Israel moved forth, ever closer to the land promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The camp was rife with whispers and speculations, as Moses rejoined them. His visage bore the radiance of the Lord, yet the hearts of some remained hardened, bolstered by the echoes of Miriam's dissent. The Lord's commandment lingered in their ears, but doubt raised its insidious head. Then the Lord spoke again to Moses from the heights of the mountain, saying, "Send men to scout the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the children of Israel. From each tribe, send a leader." Moses obeyed the Lord's command and appointed a man from each tribe, naming them before all the people, for he sought to discern the goodness of the land promised. As the 12 spies ventured forth, they traversed the hills and valleys, witnessing the lush fields and the formidable walls of fortified cities. Their eyes fell upon the giants dwelling within the land, men of stature and might. With the bounty gathered, they returned after 40 days. As they came to the congregation, despite their report of a land flowing with milk and honey, 10 of the spies raised a clamorous fear among the people, proclaiming, "We cannot go up against these people, for they are stronger than us." Their words struck terror, the hearts of the Israelites quaked. "Would that we had died in Egypt! Or that we would die in this wilderness!" They lamented. Their voices, like a dark cloud, blotted out the joy of the promised land. Joshua and Caleb, the faithful spies among the 12, tore their garments in despair and spoke, "The land is exceedingly good. If the Lord delights in us, he will bring us into this land. Do not fear the inhabitants, for they are but bread for us." But the people were swayed by the fearful report, eroding their faith and trust in the one who had led them thus. In that moment, the glory of the Lord appeared before all the people at the tent of meeting. God's voice echoed like thunder, proclaiming, "How long will this people reject me? How long will they not believe in me, in the signs which I have performed among them?" In his anger, he declared that those who had been counted in the census from 20 years old and above would not enter the promised land save for Caleb and Joshua. Moses interceded, saying, "Pardon the iniquity of this people, I pray, according to the greatness of your mercy, as you have forgiven this people from Egypt even until now." And the Lord relented, saying, "I have pardoned them according to your word. But as truly as I live, the earth shall be filled with the glory of the Lord. All who saw my signs but hardened their hearts shall not see the good land." Thus, the people learned afresh the severity of God's judgment intertwined with his immeasurable mercy. The fear of man led to the loss of the promise, and sorrow filled the camp for those unfaithful. Yet there was a remnant that would not falter. Moses, pen in hand, inscribed the words of promise, and the camp prepared to press on, though a heaviness lingered. The divine tension remained. What would become of this generation's unbelief? Would God's promises prevail despite the shortcomings of man? For he was crafting a narrative beyond their understanding, tethered to a future restoration through an eternal promise that would rise from the lineage of Israel. The time approached when the ultimate deliverer would come, revealing the fullness of God's sovereign plan. And it came to pass, in the days following the report of the spies, that a great sorrow swept through the camp of Israel, heavy and palpable, as the echoes of despair mingled with the haunting promise of the Lord. The people wept through the night, refusing to be comforted, their faces reflecting the bleakness of their hearts. "Would to God we had perished in Egypt," they cried out, as bitterness and anger against Moses filled the air. In the midst of this turmoil, the voice of Miriam rose, challenging the leadership of Moses, saying, "Has the Lord indeed spoken only through Moses? Has he not spoken through us also?" Her words were like a spark thrown upon dry timber. The offense lay heavy, as she sought to unseat the authority given by God unto Moses, yet the Lord appeared in the cloud, and the voice of God resounded with authority, saying, "Miriam, for your challenge against the Lord's appointed servant, you will bear the consequences of your actions." And immediately, Miriam was struck with leprosy, her skin turned as white as snow. At this sight, the people were struck with fear and anguish. Aaron, her brother, stood before Moses in desperation, crying out, "Alas, my Lord! Please do not lay this sin upon us, for we are guilty." Moses fell upon his face and interceded for Miriam, saying, "O God, heal her, I beseech you." The Lord responded, "If her father had but spit in her face, would she not be shamed 7 days? Let her be shut out of the camp for 7 days, and afterward, she may be received again." Thus, Miriam was removed from the camp, her beauty marred by the curse of leprosy, and the people did not journey until she was made whole. Once the days of her purification were completed, the Lord spoke to Moses again, instructing him to bring Miriam back into the fold of the camp, and he healed her in an instant. Yet the lesson hung heavily, for it was more than mere punishment, it was a divine imperative to honor the authority established by God. And so the children of Israel moved onward, continuing their journey through the wilderness. They encamped at Hazeroth, and there, God instructed Moses further, saying, "Tell the people that they must remember the covenant I made with their forefathers. They must keep my laws and decrees. Failure to do so shall have dire consequences." In that moment, a silence fell upon the congregation as they reflected on Miriam's plight, their murmuring mind caught in the balance between fear and reverence for the Lord. The stark reminder that rebellion against God's chosen could lead to swift judgment weighed upon their hearts, while the people advanced in their journey. Caleb and Joshua, steadfast in their faith, spoke words of encouragement and strength, saying, "Let not the fear of giants consume you. For if the Lord delights in us, he shall bring us into this land that swells with his goodness." Yet, a nameless anxiety lingered, for the specter of doubt cast a long shadow over their progress. Would the next generation continue in the same vein of disbelief? Or would they rise to embrace the promise extended to them? Even in the midst of uncertainty and the struggles of the past, God was working a glorious tapestry, unseen but potent and enduring plan that stretched beyond their understanding. hinting at a future deliverance yet to unfold. The hearts of the people of Israel yearned for clarity, but God's sovereignty was at play in ways yet to be revealed. For who could fathom the depths of his designs wherein faithfulness would one day lead to salvation, embodied in a coming deliverer who would bridge the chasm of every failure? And it came to pass, as the children of Israel continued their pilgrimage through the wilderness, they faced yet another trial. In the desolation of the sand-drenched landscape, their hearts were stirred again by the clamor of discontent. Whispers of hunger weaved through the camp, and the people lamented, "Would that we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt when we sat by the pots of meat and ate bread to the full. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger." Moses, hearing their complaints, fell on his face before the Lord, distressed by their grievous words. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, that I may test them whether they will walk in my law or not." The next morning, as the sun peeked over the horizon, a fine, flake-like substance lay upon the ground, like frost in the morning light. The people looked and said to one another, "What is it?" For they did not know what it was. Moses proclaimed to them, "It is the bread which the Lord has given you to eat." As they gathered this heavenly provision, the Lord instructed, "Gather of it every man according to his eating, an omer for every person, according to the number of your persons." And so they did, collecting what was sufficient for their households. Yet, some among them acted with disobedience, they gathered more than their portion, cherishing their own greed. And when they attempted to save it until the morning, the bread bred worms and stank, there was no sustenance for them. Thus, the Lord's command was made evident, as only what they gathered in faith remained fresh and nourishing that and the following days, God demonstrated his provision further. On the 6th day, Moses declared, "Tomorrow is a day of rest, a holy Sabbath unto the Lord. Bake that which you will bake, and seethe that which you will seethe, and that which remaineth over lay up for you to be kept until the morning." On the 7th day, as the people stepped forth to gather, they found none. The Lord had commanded a day of rest, and yet they ignored his holy decree. Moses was angry with them, saying, "How long refuse ye to keep my commandments and my laws?" In this pattern, the Lord's faithfulness was continually displayed, yet the hearts of the people remained hardened against his voice. And in their rebellion, the cloud of his presence grew thick among them, a solemn reminder of their deep need for faith and trust. "Behold," the Lord continued, "I have given you the Sabbath, a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that you may know that I am the Lord who sanctifies you." Thus was the provision woven into their very souls, a testament to their dependence on the Almighty, yet in the hush that followed, as night deepened over the camp, an unforeseen danger loomed. A shadow stirred beyond the borders of the encampment, a rivalry arose among the leaders, and within the hearts of some lay seeds of discord that threatened the unity of the tribe. For amidst the fragility of their faith, the tempter whispered doubt, walking a precarious edge toward rebellion against God's appointed leaders once more, but what the people did not foresee was the Lord's greater plan unfolding behind the veil of their trials. For every test was designed not only to reflect their faithlessness but to prepare a remnant, a people purified and holy, destined to carry forth a greater promise that would echo through the ages, a promise of a Redeemer, who would lead them out of bondage once and for all. The question lingered in the night air: would they rise to trust and embrace the fullness of God's provision, or would they falter under the weight of their own doubts? And it came to pass, a time of reckoning loomed over the camp of Israel, a final chapter that bore witness to the unfolding of God's magnificent plan. The air, once thick with tension, now vibrated with learning, a lesson weaved through the trials of Miriam, the whispers of discontent, and the faithfulness of God through every wilderness stretch. For those years in the desert had shaped a people, marked by both their failures and the faithfulness of a God who never forgot his inheritance. As the sun dipped low behind the distant mountains, illuminating the camp with hues of gold, the Lord spoke once more through Moses, commanding them to gather and reflect upon the mirrors of their hearts, a necessary act of remembrance before they continued their journey. The people assembled, their faces turned towards their leader, each heart weighed down with the lessons carved from both their triumphs and missteps. "Listen, O Israel," Moses proclaimed, with the weight of divine authority anchoring his words. The Lord your God desires truth in the inward parts, and as we near the land promised to our forefathers, we must strive towards holiness and obedience. His mercies have endured through our rebellions, yet the call remains for unity under God as appointed. We must hold fast to the covenant lest we fracture once more. In that moment, a hush fell upon the congregation, each soul reflecting upon the past. Miriam, now restored and vibrant, stood amongst her brothers and sisters, her heart burned with gratitude and newfound resolve. Let us give thanks, for it is by His grace that we have been restored. No longer shall we challenge the Lord's anointed, for our unity must be the chorus of our victory. Hear Him, for He speaks among us. The atmosphere ignited with renewed fervor as they recollected the truths allowed to simmer beneath their trials, how the Lord had fed them, guided them, and in His mercy, paved their way toward the promised land. The painful lessons learned during Miriam's affliction began to transform into a rich tapestry of acknowledgement for God's authority, each thread binding them closer to one another, yet amid the fervor of celebration, the Lord's voice pierced their fervor, reminding them of the gravity of their covenant. Know this, my beloved children, for every seed you sow in unity, you shall reap the bounty of my promise. Yet if arrogance or strife rises once more, the consequence shall follow. Reflect on Miriam's lesson: rebellion breeds division, but humility and honor yield blessings beyond measure. As the night deepened, the people gathered beneath the glow of the stars, a visible reminder of God's promises lighting their path. They found themselves recommitting their ways, hearts intertwined, affirming their resolve to press on in faith as one united body. Their shadows of doubt shifted into hopeful anticipation, for they wrestled not only with the inheritance ahead but also the legacy they would leave behind. A generation surrendered to faith, days turned into weeks, and the camp sustained its focus, marching onward with a unified spirit under Moses' leadership. They crossed vast stretches, felt the churn of faith amidst fatigue, and witnessed miracle upon miracle, the waters returning to sweetness, quails filling the air, and their bellies full with the bread bestowed by heaven. Each encounter refined them further, each lesson possessed clarity as they glimpsed the hopes of the future, a land flowing with milk and honey. At the edge of the Jordan, poised and ready, they stood looking over the land of promise at last, the tensions of yesterday casting long shadows behind them. It was here, after generations of wandering, that the Lord issued a final call through Joshua, His chosen successor: consecrate yourselves today. For tomorrow, the Lord will do wonders among you. With collective breath, they arose, transformed not merely as a people who had traversed a physical desert but as a community forged in divine trials. They recognized that unity was not a mere aspiration but a command from their God. The promise held. Within their grasp was no longer simply a destination, it had become the embodiment of faithfulness, trust, and the sacred covenant with Yahweh. As the waters parted before them and they stepped forth into the land that had been promised, there echoed a chorus of gratitude and hope, an eternal reminder of how God, with mercy and justice, leads His people through every trial toward redemption. They had learned to embrace the beauty in obedience, relishing in the trust that flourishing unity brings, and so it was that Israel crossed the Jordan, emerging from the shadows into a land where they would forever be known as the people of God, filled with faith, bound by promise, and ready to fulfill all that the Lord had called them to be. As the final moments of this continuation drew near, I invite each of you to hold on to this divine narrative, to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next powerful biblical stories that will unveil more of God's magnificent works throughout history. Leave a like now to help spread God's word through the algorithm, ensuring that more souls encounter truth. Comment below with your spiritual reflections and how this biblical story has impacted your faith journey. Don't wait even one more second to share this powerful testimony. Send it instantly to at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth. You need to be connected to God's Word, as this is the moment to help spread biblical truth for the glory of the kingdom.